It began on a cold evening in an old countryside house, far from the distractions of the city. The house itself looked like something from an old Gothic tale. High ceilings, cracked wooden beams, faded wallpaper, and windows that shuddered when the wind pressed against them. A group of friends had gathered there, 10 of them in total, each drawn together by curiosity, thrill-seeking, and the strange call of an ancient game that had been whispered about in folklore for centuries, the Hyakumonogatari Kaidenkai, also known as the 100 Candles game. The rules were deceptively simple. 100 candles were lit and placed around the room, forming a glowing circle that trapped both shadow and light. Each participant was required to tell a scary story. After finishing, they would extinguish one candle, plunging the room into thicker darkness. With every tale, the atmosphere would grow heavier, the shadows longer, until the final candle was snuffed out, and with it, something would be summoned. None of them admitted aloud that they believed in spirits, yet the tension in the air revealed otherwise. At first, the mood was lighthearted. The friends laughed as the first stories were told, classic urban legends about haunted highways, cursed dolls, and faceless apparitions seen at night. With each candle extinguished, however, the laughter became thinner, and the silence afterwards stretched a little too long. The house creaked as though it listened. Somewhere in the distance, they swore they heard a door close by itself, though no one had left the circle. By the time 50 candles remained, unease had replaced their bravado. Each flame cast nervous flickers against their pale faces. Shadows clung to the corners of the room, taking strange shapes that almost seemed to move on their own. One of the girls, Elena, noticed that the air had grown colder, and her breath appeared like a faint mist. She shivered, rubbing her arms. "This isn't just a game anymore," she whispered. But the others urged her to continue. Backing out wasn't allowed. As the night wore on, the stories themselves changed in tone. No longer playful, they carried weight, told with hushed voices, as though the tellers feared what might answer back. One boy told of an old woman in his village who vanished after attempting the game decades ago. Another recounted his grandmother's tale of spirits that followed her home after she joined a candle ritual as a teenager. Each time the storyteller blew out a flame, the room grew darker, and with it came an undeniable sense that something invisible had joined their circle. By candle 70, faint sounds began to emerge. A distant knock echoed from the upstairs hall. Whispering voices, too faint to make out, brushed against their ears. At first, they accused one another of pranks, but the fear on each face made it clear no one was faking. When Sophia, a quiet girl with long black hair, began her tale about a drowned child who haunted a river near her home, something wet dripped onto her hand from the ceiling. She gasped and looked up, but there was no leak, no water, nothing. Just a growing dark stain on the wood above her. The group tried to ignore it, though unease thickened like smoke. At 30 candles, they began to argue. Some wanted to stop, to leave the room, and abandon the ritual. Others reminded them that tradition warned of punishment if the cycle was broken before the end. Reluctantly, they pressed on. Each story now seemed to summon a reaction. The sound of fingernails scraping walls, the faint scent of decay in the air, the feeling of unseen eyes watching from the darkened corners. A boy named Marco swore he felt a cold hand brush his shoulder during his story. He screamed, but when the group looked, nothing was there, except a faint handprint in dust on his shirt. With 10 candles left, the room was nearly black. Only the soft glow of fire outlined their trembling faces. The silence between stories grew unbearable, filled only with shallow breathing and the pounding of their hearts. The house groaned, and somewhere deep in the walls came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. They no longer doubted the presence around them. Whatever watched had grown stronger, more curious, more hungry. Elena, who had doubted from the start, was the one chosen to tell the final story. Her hands shook as she lit her face with the flickering candlelight. She spoke of a woman who once attempted this very ritual, who became trapped forever in the shadows of her own stories. The woman's spirit wandered, seeking new players, feeding off their fear, demanding their voices to keep her memory alive. The room seemed to lean closer as Elena spoke. The shadows on the walls lengthened, and the flames shivered though no wind blew. When she finished, her eyes glistened with tears. Her lips trembled as she leaned forward and blew out the 99th candle. Only one flame remained, weak and fragile against the oppressive dark. The air was heavy, pressing against their chests, suffocating. No one wanted to extinguish the last light, yet the rules demanded it. A hand reached out, pale, trembling, and pinched the flame into nothingness. Darkness swallowed the room whole. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then came the sound of a woman's laugh, low and broken, from within the circle. Something moved between them, brushing their legs, icy and real. Elena screamed. The laughter grew, echoing from all sides, until it became a chorus of voices whispering in unison. Hands reached from the shadows, cold, bony, inhuman, dragging the candles aside, scattering them like dead petals. The circle was broken. No one escaped that house with their sanity intact. Some say the friends vanished entirely, never seen again. Others whisper that on certain nights, if you enter that countryside home and light a single candle, you'll hear voices, 10 of them, telling stories in the dark, their screams forever trapped in the endless game they never should have played. And so the legend continues. 100 candles, 100 stories, and the promise that if you dare to finish, the darkness will claim you too. The moment the final candle was extinguished, darkness pressed in like a suffocating blanket. At first, they thought it was simply the absence of light, but quickly they realized it was more than that. This darkness was alive. It pulsed, it shifted, and it breathed around them. Their eyes widened in the void, yet no matter how hard they strained, they saw nothing. Only the weight of something unseen watching closely, waiting patiently. Then the whispers began again, low and hushed, as if spoken just behind their ears. But these whispers were different from before. They weren't in any language the group recognized, yet somehow each of them understood. They spoke of secrets no human should know, of their hidden fears, their guilts, and their unconfessed sins. Elena heard her own voice whispering back at her, mocking her doubts, taunting her with truths she never told anyone. She screamed and covered her ears, but the whispers slipped inside her skull. Suddenly, a match flared. Marco had lit it in panic, desperate for even a sliver of light. For a split second, the small flame revealed the circle of friends. Their faces were pale, their eyes wide with terror, but behind them, in the walls and ceiling, figures loomed. Dozens of shadowy forms pressed forward, their bodies distorted, their mouths gaping wide in silent hunger. The match died with a hiss, and Marco's scream was cut short as something yanked him backwards into the dark. Chaos erupted. Hands flailed in the pitch black, voices cried out, but one by one, they were silenced. Sophia stumbled, her fingers brushing the wooden floor, only to feel a hand grip hers tightly, too cold, too strong. She thought it was Elena until another icy hand grabbed her ankle and pulled her violently into the shadows. Her shriek echoed and then vanished, as if swallowed whole. Elena was the last. She crawled toward where she thought the door was, her breath shallow, tears streaming. The whispers grew louder, converging into a single, dreadful voice that filled the room. It sounded like the woman from her final story, the one cursed to wander the shadows. "You finished the game," the voice crooned. "Now you belong to me." Elena froze. She felt warm breath on her neck, followed by the sensation of fingers combing slowly through her hair. She turned her head ever so slightly, and in that sliver of movement, she saw glowing eyes staring back at her from the dark. Eyes not human, eyes filled with endless hunger. The last thing Elena heard was the sound of candles relighting themselves, one by one. Their flames did not illuminate safety, but instead revealed the room empty, completely void of the friends who had once sat there. Only the candles burned, circling an empty space, and in their wavering glow, shadowy figures danced silently, waiting for the next players bold, or foolish, enough to play. From that night onward, the legend of the 100 candles game grew darker. Travelers whispered that if you ever found a house with 100 lit candles and sat within their circle, you would hear the voices of those who had vanished before. And if you dared to stay until the final flame, you would join them forever in the shadows, telling stories that never end.